Finding common percentages. All right, we'll start off with 250, and we want 10%. So we'll divide this by 10. The decimal will move from here to here, which will create a 25. Do not put the 25 here, but instead put it here. Now we want 5%. 5% we find by taking half of the 10% answer. Well, 25 is odd, so it's a little tough sometimes to take a half of an odd number. So what I'm going to do is I add a decimal and a 0, and I'm going to take half of 2, which is 1, and then half of 50, which is 25, and then we'll just move our decimal here, and it becomes 12.5. Now, to get a 15%, we add our 10 and our 5% together. So that means we're going to add our 25.0 and our 12.5s together. So this will be a 5, and then the decimal, and 5 and 2 make 7, and the 2 and the 1 make a 3. And 37.5 is 15%. Now for 20%, we go back up to 10% and we double it, or should I say multiply it by 2. So 25 times 2, or should I say 25 plus 25, will be 50. Okay. Now, we want to take 10% of 350. That means that the decimal has to be moved back, which is divided by 10, and we'll get 35. Place the 35 in these two columns, okay? Not in those two. Okay, and what we're going to do is find 5%. Now, 5% is half of 10%. This is an odd number, so once again, we're going to use our decimal and our 0, and we need to take half of 350. Now, let's break 350 down into two pieces. If you're having trouble taking half of 350, let's take half of, let's just break this up into 300 over here and 50 over there. And now we'll take half of both of those. So half of 300 is 150. Half of 50 is 25. And then we're going to add those together again. So we add the 150 to the 25, we're going to get 175. So let's put that in for half. 175, and then we're going to put the decimal right here. So we get 17.5. Now to find 15%, you need to add your 10 and your 5% together. So 0 plus 5, that's your 5, then the decimal. And then the 5 and the 7 add up to a 12. So we'll put the 2 here, and we'll carry the 1 there. Now I need to add 1, 3, and 1. When you add those, you will get 5. And so 15% will be 52.5. Now, to get 20%, you go back up to 10% and you double it. So if I double a 35, or should I say multiply it by 2, essentially you're having 35 plus 35. That will be 70, and we don't need the decimal. Okay, but 25. To get 10%, we need to move the decimal from here to here. So let me expose where the decimal is. The decimal is here. Okay, and we're moving it there to get 2.5. I want to write my 2.5 here. So my decimals line up. And that's 10%, 2.5. Now, to get 5%, we have to take half of this. In order to take half of 2.5, looks like an odd number, I'm going to add a 0 right here. And so now I can take half of 2, which is 1, put the decimal here. Then half of the 50 will be 25. Okay. Now, to get 15%, we're going to add our 10% and our 5% answers. So when I add these two, I'm going to get 5 here. 5 and 2 make 7, then the decimal. And 2 and 1 make 3. So 15% is going to be 3.75. Next, I need my 20%. In order to find 20%, we're going to have to, let's see. Oh, take the 10% and double this. So a 2.5 plus another 2.5. let's take a look at what that will be. 2.5 times 2, basically. 2.5 times 2 is basically saying 2.5 plus 2.5. 5 plus 5 gives us 10. And then when I add the 1, 2, and the 2, I'll get 5. 5.0 is the same thing as 5. So this will be a 5. 35. To do 10%, I move my decimal over. So let's place the decimal here. And I'll get 3.5. So let's put the decimal there and then write in the 3.5 there. Next, I want 5%. So since this is an odd number, I'm going to add a 0. And to get 5%, I need to take half of 350. Well, remember, when we took half of 350, we got 175. So I'm going to write in 175 and then put my decimal in. And we're done. Now, to get 15%, we have to add our 10 and our 5% together. So 0 and 5 make 5. 5 and 7 makes 12. So I'll put a 2 there and then carry my 1 there. And adding the 1, the 3, and the 1 makes a 5. And again, don't forget my decimal. So that'll be 5.25%. Now, 20%, we go back up to 10% and we double it. So we're going to take 3.5 and we're going to double it. So 5 plus 5, that gives us 10. Carry my 1. The 1, the 3, and the 3, that all adds up to a 7. So you get 7.0. And since it's 7.0, we can consider that 7. So 20% will be 7. Okay, so 250, we're going to do all of these. So 10% of 250 will be 25 when you move the decimal back. 5% we'll find by adding a 0 there, and that'll be a 1 and a 25 with a decimal there. 15% will add these two, so we'll get a 5, a 7, and a 3 with a decimal. 20% will double the 10%, so we'll get 25 plus 25, which is 50. 25% we can gain by putting our we can put our 10% and our 15% together. So we can put those two together. All right, so that'll be 0 and 5, which is 5, then the decimal. The 5 and the 7 makes 12. And carry my 1. And then we'll put our 1, our 2, and our 3 together. That'll be a 6. Okay. Now, to do a 50%, what we can do is we need half of the original number. So the original number is 250. So half of 2 makes 1. Half of 50 makes 25. And finally, to get our 75%, we need to add together our 25 and our 50 together. So these two need to be added. So I'll add a decimal here and a 0, and I'll get 5, 7, 6 plus 2 is 8, and then the 1.